Hey folks, Reloading Bench back with you once again. We're going to do some weekend quarantine spring reloading, I guess is a good way to put it. I'm going to try to do this on my Lee Classic turret, which you guys have seen before, but maybe not at this video angle, so things might be a little uncomfortable as I try to situate so that you can see what I'm doing, but at the same time still have access to the press without jumping all over the place and bumping into the camera. So I'll put my small primer arm in and my number 15 shell holder. So these I shot, and this is what I've been playing with for the resizing and the trimming and setting up the dies and whatnot. And then these I picked up from online from somebody who was getting rid of them dirt cheap, so I scored on that. And what I'll probably do is go through the different segments of what I'm going to do in terms of resize, then I will trim, chamfer, debur, then probably load powder through here with a funnel, experiment with both loading directly into the case as well as dropping in the funnel, see which one's more accurate. Well, I know which one's probably more accurate, but I'll test the two to see my theory, and then go back to seating and crimping and see how that goes. So obviously I'm not going to go through all 50 for each stage, so I'll probably just do a couple for each run. And I'm a big fan of the Imperial Wax. Who makes this? I don't know. It's just called, oh, it's Redding. I should have guessed with the green. Redding Imperial. And I've been using that for a long time. In fact, I'm getting a little bit low. So that's worked very well for me in the past, and I'm a fan of that. And naturally something's going to get caught in there. It's one of those Murphy's Law. As soon as you start videoing, all shit goes to shit. So I will show you what I do for deprime and sizing. And I think some of these have been, as I said, since I've been experimenting with these, some of them have been deprimed, some of them haven't. I usually go maybe 3 or 4 bullets, cases with what was on my fingers for the lube. Maybe I'll stretch it to 5. I can still feel it. And let's see if I'm in the way. Yeah, kind of. Sorry. Maybe I'll move the camera around for the next few. In fact, why don't I go ahead and do that now so you can get the other side view of what I'm doing. Back in a minute. This view is actually a little more comfortable for me, not so cramped with my tiny garage and the video tripod everywhere. But then again, making a video is never easy anyway, simply because the camera is always in the way, and that's a given. Alright, so there's 10. I'll go ahead and do the other 40, and we'll be on to the next step. See you in a few. Before I forget, and I just reminded myself, I think, and I was having this conversation with myself, I was saying, self, if you ever had to go down to one press, what would it be? And in all honesty, I can say with 100% certainty, this is the press it would be. The flexibility and interchangeability that this press allows me compared to any other press is just hands down the winner. And right now I'm operating in single stage mode. I popped the indexing rod and I'm in not progressive, but a more streamlined pseudo progressive model in terms of getting things done a little bit quicker. The Dillon and the Hornady presses, they're cool and they're great for what they do in terms of high volume single caliber loads. Very efficient, beautiful machines. They're works of art. just as I think this is. This is beyond basic, simple, elegant, functional, cost-effective, all in one. And if you've followed me for any period of time, you know I'm a Leaf fan. And I tend not to bash any of the vendors or the manufacturers because I think they all put out great products. Some I just like better than others for whatever reasons. But if I had to go down to one press, this would be it, hands down. It just does everything. And what I can put on the tool heads and the turret heads are just amazing for the level of interchangeability and what you can do with this little, this very small press and what it can pop out. So my 2 cents of, if it had to be one, this is the one it would be. And before I forget, in these times of uncertainty and financial shakiness, I went out and made an investment, and I think it was one that will pay off in the long run. I picked up some gold, some redneck gold. Couldn't resist. Good stuff. Lead will always be needed in one form, fashion, or another. So I'll show you the setup here before I set it up. Normally, here's my freshly sized and decapped 50 plus. I think I did 55 just in case I screw something up. So I'm going to do my goal is to fill this block with 50. And I usually use, I'm a bin fan, I usually use a couple bins. One bin to feed or at least house my raw material or unfinished material. Another bin maybe of a different size, color, or something to designate that there's a difference between the two. That my output will go into this bin. And a few of you may have seen a long time ago that I opted, instead of having to constantly turn or at least press the drill on and off, it just wears and tears on your finger. So it's easier to hold this in a position than it is to hold it and try and keep it on or off, turn it on or off. So I went with a solution which is like a foot pedal, is like a sewing machine kind of thing. So I'll be able to power the drill, which will house my cutter and my cover, and I'll do that as a foot operated process, and I'll usually do it over another bin to catch all my shavings so I don't get my bench full of irritating little brass. So I'll set this up and then we'll show it to you. All right, now the tripod is like right on me, so hopefully I'm not going to bump it. And I was going into old habits. I'm liking this a lot. And the brass heats up. Nice and warm. Last one. All right, I'll do this a little more comfortably and finish the rest because you don't need to see the same thing over and over. And then on to the next step. All right, before I forget, I'll show a before and after 1.4. I'll call this 4.2. And then maybe a couple, depending on how tight a fit it is with the camera. So my rhythm is, whoops, and I totally forgot to measure that. So let's try that again. 1.45, almost 1.46. .32. That one cut down good. Let me try one more. 4.1. .35-ish. No need to press too hard. So if I use my mat to tilt, it works. And one more and I'll let you go. Let's see what this one came in at. 1.13, 1.133-ish, depending on what cut it's hitting before chamfer and debur. Back in a bit. I was debating how I wanted to do chamfer and debur. I was thinking manually with my little lineman, and then I thought, you know what, since I have the drill, the pedal, and the hand primer out, why not stay with the same model? So here, there's my, I don't know if you can see that, my shavings from the trim. And I got these forever and a day ago. In fact, they're two of the same thing. So on each end, the other end looks like this. And I can't remember who made these, but they're made for this, to just drop the chamfer and debur tool in, lock it in with an Allen wrench, chuck it to a drill, and now you've got a very automated chamfer and debur. So I like these, and I will take my finished output, throw it back into the bin, and start the process all over again. So I will set up here, and I put these in a little medicine tube as well to catch some of the flakes. And I'll try it upside down. I'll try it at a 45-degree angle as well, so the shavings go into the cup and then dump it. So back in a few. Again, what I'm liking about using the hand primer is this is really short brass, and I've had it times where, you know, when you're doing it a drill, and you don't need high speed for this, low speed works fine, but a little slip makes for a big mess, and the tools are sharp, so I would say better safe than sorry. This may look like it wobbles because this does wobble, but as you can see, the cutter turns nice and straight, or cutter trimmer. This one's a little harder. Hitting a moving target, not so easy. And I noticed that with the foot, there is no reason to do anything high speed with this particular, the chamfer and the debur. I don't know if these will come out clear, but these are, you can hear it just really sharp from the cutter. And that puts a beautiful, beautiful polish on there. I'll do one more, then we'll do the other. Maybe another one, just for giggles. And to see the difference between the two. This camera's terrible at certain focus, but the one on my left is the one I just did. You can see the difference in the cut. All right, I'll finish these up, and we'll be back. Okay, so for this round of chamfering, I'm finding that trying to do it over this is just not worth it. One, because you don't have a lot of shavings, and two, this is at a great natural angle to come in and do what I need to do. And it's a quick blast anyway. So that works quite nice. And then empty in the cup every 10 or so rounds. Just an FYI. So of the two tools, this one's the scarier of the two. when you look at, again, if I was to get in there and just not pay attention, that would hurt. So I'll do a few. Let's see what gives me the best amount of room here. Lock the drill on. And foot time. Very nice. Hopefully that's somewhat in focus. In fact, I pulled a completely resized, or excuse me, trimmed, resized and trimmed, where you can see hopefully the difference. You can feel the difference. This, you can feel the cutting on the edge from the brass being trimmed. This is perfectly smooth, and obviously you can see the inside of the neck, the difference with the chamfer. So that will stay as my baseline example. Do a couple like this, and then I'll change the angle. As you can tell, I'm a fan of automation, especially with bottleneck brass. The amount of prep, two ends of the spectrum between what I would normally call, I'll just say straight walled versus bottle. Because many will say rifle versus pistol, and this is actually pistol brass and it's bottleneck. Change the angle here, hold on. And we're back. Move my foot pedal a little. And even turn this a little. A little hard to turn it because of how the cables want to situate. I have the cable for the foot pedal, the cable for the drill, and my wonderful, whatever this cube was called. Love having that on the bench and the mobility it provides. Alright, back when these are done. That's my brass shavings from trimming / chamfer and deburring. And I will probably now do some checking to make sure everything seats so there's no surprises. I can't remember where I got this one from. This one, Sheridan Engineering, and they had a pretty cool offering on their case gauges, and they've got one now that is cut out so that you can see the head spacing. I think it's like $10 or $15 more, which I'm not too concerned with. And as Murphy's Law would have it, since there's still a little bit of case lube on here, that's not to be unexpected. Just depends on whether that was brass number 1 or number 5 when I was running my case lube. So I'm not going to go through all 55. You get the idea. Back in a minute. Ooh, sitting down finally. Actually, I was sitting down when I did some of the resizing. So I have kept a journal. I call it my recipe book, cookbook, whatever. Ever since I started reloading, this is book number 2, and I just keep track of what I'm shooting: bullet manufacturer, type, weight, cartridge overall length, primer, powder / charge target, feet per second. Now that I've got the lab radar, I've had a chrono for a while, chronograph, but I like to elaborate our better. And then my notes, and for example, my notes on this are going to be that I'm hand loading using a trickler as well, and to get to my exact load, because I'm not taking any chances. And I'm going to do two things, which you'll see shortly with that load, because I'm probably going to put the indexing rod back on the classic turret. But a couple things. One, my case gauge that I tested, as you saw all the brass in earlier. And I've got a finished production commercial round as well, and obviously that would pass the go no go. But what was interesting when I was reading some stuff online, they talk about cartridge length of commercial being 1.5925, and I measured my commercial. I'm coming up with roughly 1.58, almost 5, so a little bit shorter. Shorter better than longer, I guess, in this case. One of the few cases you get to say that. So I'll put my recipe book away. I've got my Hornet EV Max 40 grain. I'll pull out my small rifle primers and set that up. And the big concern with this cartridge, again, in my opinion, once you've had your dies set up to appropriately resize so you're not crushing heads, which this particular online data source made note of, and I thought that was kind of funny. Sorry about that. That's a Murphy's Law kind of thing. So I thought that was kind of funny. I don't recall crushing any brass like that in a very, very long time. And then I wanted to show, in fact, let's see if on a white background, how nice the chamfer and debur came out. And I have no idea if that's really picking that up, because this camera does have issues with focus. And I double checked my load data against, again, online sources. Ultimately, I'm responsible for my own load data, and I know a lot of people online don't even like to talk about load data because they believe they're going to be held liable for something, but this is common knowledge out there on the interweb. And since I'm going to be using True Blue with the Hornet EV Max, you can see a big difference in this load data. Is Hornet EV Max 40 grain True Blue, they're saying min load 5.6, max load 6.3 to reach either 1,600 and almost 30 feet per second versus 1,800 feet per second. My snooping around online found that the average True Blue charge was around 6 grains. When you look at the Lyman 50th edition, they're saying for True Blue 5.3 to 5.8, 5.3 being 1631 and 5.8 being 1770. So that's a pretty big difference between, they're saying 5.3 will get you the 1630, and they're saying 5.6 and 5.8 will get you, or excuse me, 6.3 will get you the 1800. So I'm going to start this load off at 5.7 grains of True Blue, and that's going to be my target, and I'll show you how I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. So I'll put this away and make a little more room on the bench and be back. All right, so a little hard to split the screen, or rather catch it all in one frame. So I'll focus on powder in terms of what I'm doing with powder. And since I don't have a powder drop, my thought was I will cheat a little bit and do something like that to move things along. So I'll get it to, there's 4.8. And I said I'm going after 5.7. So something like, and that was quick. So live and learn. Do a little scope. Actually, you can see the whole process, kind of like what we do on the on the progressives. Let's make sure that's zeroed out. And do that again. All right, so there's 2.7 with a dipper. And we'll go into low mode. I do like this trickler, but low seems to be very low with this particular powder just because it's so fine. And if you haven't seen this powder before, and there's 5.7. That's kind of funny, 5.7 for the 5.7. Hopefully you can see that it's really, really tiny. So what I'm going to do, and I'll show you this in a different frame, but that's my first thought for powder. So as I'm over here on the press, I'm throwing the primer in, and we'll double check. We're good. New primer. And for this first round, and I have a habit, let me cover powder just in case. I have a habit, more of a tradition, that for my very first round that I ever make in a particular caliber or reload, I keep that one on a shelf. So I will put that. So that now has powder, and I'm back on the press, and I will throw one of my orange tip VMAXs in. Check what I've got for bullseye on my, where did it go? My blue tip. I get it straight. 8.2, 8 whatever, 8.3. And I'm coming in at uncrimped 8.4.5. And I will check my case gauge. Nothing poking out. Pretty close, but not poking out. And I will now crimp this bad boy. And now that I've crimped, I'll take another measurement. .585. And I'm good on bottom and top. So that one goes in the pocket. And we'll do another one the same way. This is like old school reloading. Ooh, that's pretty close. And 5.8, which I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over. Wow. 5.7. I'm going to have to figure out how to make a little holder for that puppy. Prime brass. Bullet. And I'll move the camera so that you can see this half of the operation, or at least this side of it. 8.9. And I'll do a check on all these at the end of the session as well. All right, I'm going to switch the camera around so you guys can see this a little better on the other side of the press. All right, so I thought what I would do while I still have the camera, just as I turned it off, instead of hand loading the powder, I'm going to use this funnel that you can't see right now that's in the charging die for the powder die. I'm going to put that in there, and actually, once I get it rotated around, I am going to, yeah, there's just no room to do anything with the camera, the tripod, and trying to do this. So let's see what I get there. Really fine powder. Super, super fine powder. So I'm going to take that 5.7-ish, 5.8, and I'm going to throw it directly into the powder funnel. And then I'm going to take the cartridge that I just charged, and I'm going to see if that stays the same level. Ooh, so we won't be doing that. So that means somewhere in that, wow, that's pretty messed up. Somewhere in this die, yeah, I can see it right now. So we won't be doing that. We won't be doing this. That would be a dangerous thing. So somewhere in the die, because of lube, whatever, is about 2 grains worth of powder. Let me see if I can get that in the case. Doubtful. I'm sure I'm just blowing that around, but I'm interested to see what I get, if anything. Yeah, garbage. In fact, what came out of there, I don't know if you can see it, is gunky. So that goes in the unknown powder bin. And we are going to go back to hand charging. That was interesting. All right, so let's get back to 0. Five, 2. There's 5.7. And I'm sure if I'm careful enough, yeah, it's a pretty tiny opening. And I don't know if you can see that. If I can put a little light there so that you can see how nicely that fits in there. So there's no question all the powder is going in there as opposed to somewhere else. Just dropping all kinds of shit tonight. And there is round number 2-ish. Technically 3-ish. All right, now I'll move the camera. So I realized the primer tray is kind of in the way. And if you're asking why I'm resizing, it's just out of habit for that powder got in there a little bit when we had our little mishap with the funnel. I'll call that just habit. So again, Now that you can see this a little clearer, I'll move this out of the way. This is what the setup that I had going that I lost due to the incredibly fine powder. It's probably the finest powder I've ever worked with. Lost the equivalent of 2 grains worth of powder stuck in the innards of that particular die. Let me run this all the way through and see. It's probably not even worth doing the dipper. And that's 5.7. So this is taking hand loading back to old school. And we've got 3 whole bullets. What did that take us? For ever and a day. But again, anytime something's on video, it's always a little more time consuming than when I'm doing this alone and nobody's watching virtually or physically. So I do like this trickler a lot. And I think the reason I like it as much as I do, let me put the powder back on. I made that cap just because I don't like powder to get spilled. And it looks like we have a little stuck on the tray, and I don't know if that was after I pulled it off or not, so let me double check. Yeah, 5.8. I'm not going to worry about that. And I'll remove the primer tray here in a minute so you can get a better look at maybe what I'm doing. Old habits. Stuff's pretty good. I'm getting 1/10 of a grain after the button stop. That's 5.9. Again, since my target originally was 6, probably wouldn't lose any sleep over that either. And it's kind of interesting how much it takes of this fine powder to make a difference. And this will probably be it for show and tell. And another measurement, 5.88, excuse me, 1.588. So I'm calling this good, and that's it. We will be back in another 45 rounds, or at least that's it for now.